Hi, I'm Aaron. Today I'm going to work on a project for Facebook's new Messenger bot store. If you haven't heard already, Facebook recently announced their Messenger bot store at the F8 Developer Conference in San Francisco. Bots are meant to do a couple of things, from helping you manage your personal tasks to helping you find the weather. And I recently picked up this new Raspberry Pi 3, and I thought that this thing probably has enough computing power to actually run my own bot. And I've been kind of forgetful when it comes to staying up to date with current news, so I thought that my bot could potentially send me new news articles every morning so that I can stay up to date with current events. Since it's a messenger bot, of course, it has to be able to understand natural language as well. So I'm going to break this part into 3 videos. In the first part, I'm going to work on a basic server in Node.js and communicate with Facebook's API. In the second video, I'm going to add a few more features like subscribing to events, as well as showing more articles in the Messenger feed. Lastly, in the final video, I'm going to look at a few natural language learning libraries. One of those libraries is called wit.ai, which Facebook released with their Messenger bot store. This video is going to be probably 99% code, so if you aren't interested in that kind of thing, I would stop watching the video now. Otherwise, let's get started. Okay, so I am now on my Mac, and I like to develop on my Mac before going to my Raspberry Pi because it's a lot faster, and I also have a few more options as far as text editors go. So I have my terminal open here, and I also have my text editor, which I like to use Sublime Text, but you can use whatever you want. I'm just familiar with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new directory for my project. I'm calling this newsbot just so I know what it is. Right now I have nothing in the directory. So for this bot, I'm going to use Node.js for the server, and Facebook actually recommends you use that. If you go to their getting started page for the Messenger bot store, all the tutorials are for Node.js, so it's pretty easy to find resources as far as that goes. If you haven't used Node.js before, I recommend going to the nodejs.org page where you can download Node.js. And so if you just go to home, there's 2 download links. I usually use the LTS version because it's more stable than the current, but you can do whatever you want. So to generate a Node project, I like to use Express, and it's very easy to generate a project with this Express generator module. So how Node works is there are several modules, or actually thousands of modules out there that you can download online, and you can really easily plug and play and use whatever you want to run your project. So Express generator is one of those modules, and you use something called npm to install these modules. So that comes default with Node. So if I go back to my terminal here and I say npm install express generator, and I do -g, I can save it globally and also install express generator. And now that I did that, I just realized that it's going to yell at me because I don't have my sudo rights default on this. So I'm going to do sudo npm install express generator, type my password, and oops, and it'll install. Okay, so now Express Generator is installed. So I'm just going to follow the prompts here. I'm going to create an app called Newsbot. So if I type Express and then Newsbot, camel case of course, it will create the files needed for my app. So then I'm going to enter the Newsbot directory and then run sudo npm install, and it will install all the dependencies necessary for this project. Going back to this tutorial here, if I run npm start, it starts my server. And now if I go to my browser here and I type localhost 3000, it'll show me the Express homepage. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention is that since I'm going to be needing to transfer the files over to my Raspberry Pi, I actually set up a GitHub repository for it. And once I'm working off my Raspberry Pi, I'll just clone this repository and install the files directly from there. And since Node is nice in the fact that all the modules are standardized and you can install them directly through npm. It's really easy to install your server on a new machine. So what I did was I cloned the repository on my local, and now I'm just going to move my newsbot to my GitHub repo, which is sitting in the same folder. And now I committed my files. I am going to push them. All right, so I forgot to change the resolution of my screen, so hopefully you can see this a bit better. So now that we've pushed our code to GitHub, you can see that there is all of that code in the repository right now. And the next thing we want to do is start communicating with Facebook. So in the Getting Started guide, the first thing they'll tell you to do is create a Facebook app page. I've done that here. Mine's called Testbot. You can do this by just going to this link that they have here. It doesn't really matter what it's called right now, but you will have to create a page for it. So that page will have to be named whatever you want your bot to be. And then what we actually do to communicate with Facebook is set up a webhook. So if you go to this webhooks tab right here, you can see I already have a ngrok IO webhook set up. So this is basically a local tunnel. You can't connect with your IP from the outside world because your IP is specific to your local network. So I'm using a software called ngrok. You can go to ngrok.com and download it, and it basically exposes your IP for a specific port. I'll get into that in a second. So going back here, so in order to set up a webhook, I need to copy some code that they have on this Getting Started guide. So this block of code is what we're going to use to create our webhook. This is a node function, and it handles a GET request. So we set up our app, we say get this endpoint, which is webhook, and then we pass a function as a parameter to our function. And so Node.js is kind of interesting in the fact that you can pass closures to your function and execute blocks once something has happened asynchronously. So it's a way of handling an action after an action. In this case, we're passing a request and a response. So the request is what we receive and the response is what we send. So in this case, request has a query object and it has a dictionary which contains the hub verified token. So this validation token is what we're going to set up on this user interface here. So if I press edit, go into this page, and then type a simple token, say hello token success, copy this. This is what we're going to use in place of this tag right here. So I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to go back to our terminal, and now I'm going to go to our text editor. I'm going to find my files for my server, go into newsbot, and my main file is going to be this app.js. I'm just going to open up the entire project though. Click on app.js, and this is our server file. So as we can see here, the Express generator has created some code for us, and it already has a few things in it. If we go to routes, we can see another GET request that has already been created, and this is for the simple home page or the index page. So I'm going to paste this code in here. It's not completely how we want it right now because they used a different application. So I'm going to change this to router instead, and I'm going to paste our token in here instead of this tag. So if I go to testbot page, copy my token, go back to my editor, paste this, and save it, I can start our server. So that's running. And so I want to be able to connect to this IP from a Facebook server, and I can't do that unless I have ngrok running. So if I open up a new tab here, I navigate to my desktop, and then I run /ngrok with the port. So ngrok, since we're on port 3000, HTTP 3000. So now I have a local tunnel set up. And you can see here there are two DNS names. One is an HTTP, the other is a HTTPS. And we're going to want to use this because Facebook requires SSL. Come back here, replace this with our new DNS name, and I verify. We've now verified our webhook. So that's awesome. So now what we want to do is actually send some data back to our test bot. And so now we need to respond to the post webhook endpoint. So if I just copy this code as well, go back to my index. So we post this, and again we want to change app to router. And so this is a post function, same as before, except this time we get a different object. So in the request we have a body. The body has entries, and each entry has a messaging object. And we're calling this variable messaging events. And so for the messaging events, I'm assuming that this is an array. We get an event from each messaging events entry. And then our event probably has a message which the user sends, and then it will have a text object in this message object. So now we've extracted text from this huge JSON format, and we're going to want to do something with the text here. So that's what this is saying. And because this is a closure, we're going to process the data, but initially send a 200 response back to tell the server that we have in fact received this data. So going back to the Facebook developer page here, if we were to send a message to Facebook right now, nothing would happen. It wouldn't send anything back. However, we can see that they have this code for sending a text message, and it looks like they create a message data object with the text that we extracted before, and then with this new request module, they're sending a request to the Facebook API for this graph call. And they also have a token here, and if you go to your Facebook page, click on Messenger, you can generate your own token. So you can select a page and generate a token. Instead of putting my token in the code, I'm going to put it or use a environment variable, an extracted environment variable, just so I can post this code on GitHub. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go back to our terminal, npm install request, and we want to save that. So we're going to add the save flag. Oh, and I just forgot to sudo npm install. So now going back to our editor, we're going to have to use this module in our index.js. So we'll say var request equals require request. Save that, and then come back here, copy our function, including the token variable, and then just, I guess, paste it wherever. And then we want to call this function in our post request. So let's call this send text message with the sender, which we have defined right here, and then the text that we extracted from the JSON object. And so now we need to use our environment variable here. So I have the code for that. So this is how you get a environment variable in Node, process.env, and then your environment variable. And I'm just going to call this token value. Oops. Use an underscore here to make it more apparent what it is. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is come back here and use export set token value equals single quotes whatever your token is, and it will set an environment variable. So you'll need to do this whenever you restart your terminal. Alright, so I've added my own environment variable for the Facebook token that I generated on my page. And now I'm going to start the server again. And this code that we posted in here should just echo back whatever the sender sent to the bot. So if I go to my bot page and I create a new message, let's say hi, you can see that the bot actually responds to your message. And this will work with anything you post. So ideally, instead of doing this, we'll take action based on what the user sent. But for now, it's just nice to get this set up like this. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is send back a news article instead of just echoing back text. What I want to do now is use some sort of API that gives me a news feed, and I have a endpoint here which sends me RSS output from the Google News site. So if you use the endpoint https news.google.com/news and then the parameters output equals RSS, it'll send you an RSS feed. In case you didn't know, RSS stands for Rich Site Summary, and people use this mainly for blogs, posting news articles, feeds of things happening, etc. So there are tons of RSS parsers out there for Node, so I'm just going to do a RSS parser that I know off the top of my head called RSS feed. And so this is RSS feed, and I want to save this as well. Okay, and just to verify that I'm saving things, you can look at the package.json, and all of your modules should be in there. So I have in here Express, I have request, RSS feed, so it looks like they are being posted there. Oops. So going back to my code, again, I need to include this module. So I'm going to call this RSS reader and require RSS feed. So now I'm going to create a new function, and I will call this function, say, get article. And I will also create a new variable called, let's just call this Google News endpoint for now, and paste that endpoint that I just showed you to get the RSS feed. Oops, call this function instead. Okay, so now what I'm going to want to do is use this RSS reader to parse the result of this endpoint request. So if I go Google News Endpoint and I pass in a function which has the error and the article's response. Okay, and now I want to also add a callback as the parameter of the function, and if there's an error, I will return a error in the callback. Else, if articles dot length is greater than 0, return the first article. Actually, you know what? Let's call this get articles. And let's still make sure that the length is greater than 0, so that we know that we've received articles. And say articles. Else, return our own error case, which states no articles received. Okay, perfect. So now if we go up here and we say var articles equals get articles with our callback. Articles, actually, whoops, because this is a callback, we don't need to do this. And we send text message after we receive our callback with articles 0 dot title. So now we should be sending the top article from the Google News RSS feed. And to verify this, go here and start the server. So sorry, I forgot. The module is called feed read. It's not called RSS read. So you can install that instead. Whoops. And save it as well. And then I just change this also in my code and run this again. So now it's running, and let's go back to our test bot, say hi, and looks like we have another error here. It says articles is not defined. Oops, so we need to change this to articles. Run it again. And there we go. So it sent me the top trending article for the day. And so now we probably want to submit a link because the article title isn't very useful. So if we go to the Facebook page here again, we can see that there are certain message types for sending rich content. And so right now, currently our message data just contains text, but we can create an object and Facebook will recognize this object as a message template, basically. So I already have one created on some other code that I wrote here. And I'm just going to copy this because it's much easier. Oops. Then writing it out again. And okay, so right here we have our message data. So instead, now we're going to send an attachment, which is of type template. The payload will contain a generic payload, which has elements title, subtitle, and item URL. So we're going to have to change our function a bit here. Let's say we take an article instead. And now our article will have a title. It will have a link. Going back to the RSS feed up here, we can see that there's these link tags. Let's see here. Here's that article that I found. And let's see, let's just search for link. Yeah, so it contains links to the news articles on Google News. So then it also has a published object, but it's not a string, so I'm just going to convert that to string. And this will be the time when the article was published. So all this information is required. You need title, subtitle, and you need a URL. So changing this function here, I'm just going to pass in article 0, save this, and then let's restart our server. Now going back to our testbot page, again, if we type hello, it sends us back a rich content element containing our link, the publish date, as well as the title. And if I click on this link, it'll take me to the article. So now that we have that done, I'm just going to push our code to GitHub. Okay, cool. So now it's on GitHub. I can log into my Raspberry Pi. I have VNC set up on my Raspberry Pi. So if I just say screen share on my Mac, and then I log in, I can now see my Raspberry Pi here. And I also have my, so this might be kind of small, so sorry about that. I also have Git set up on here as well. Okay, so now I'm in my Newsbot directory. I'm going to clone my repository. You're going to want to install Node. And so there's a great Adafruit guide on how to do this. It's basically 2 lines of code. And I'll link that in the description of this video. You might have to install npm as well. And then after installing npm, navigate to your project directory and run npm install. And you might have an issue with it not installing your dependencies, but if you just manually install all of them, it will work as well. Once you have all your dependencies installed, you've downloaded ngrok, you can start your server, run ngrok, and then you'll have to update your webhook, because every time you start ngrok, it will generate a new DNS name. So you have to go back to your webhooks page, click edit, and then do the token verification again. And once you have that set up, you should be running your own Raspberry Pi chatbot. That's all for this video. In the next video, I'm going to create a database so that I can have users subscribe to events. I'm also going to add a few functions to the bot, like the ability to show more articles in the Messenger feed. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with this project as well as other projects, including our robotic bartender, which is Arduino and Raspberry Pi powered and mixes drinks for you. If you have any suggestions or improvements on the bot or a better format for these videos, please let me know in a comment below. Until then, see you next time.